and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto, and today guys we are taking a cheeky look at Vechain. Specifically we're going to have a look at the VET price against the USD. We're going to have a look at the charts. We're going to have a good session looking over the daily. We'll look at the 4 hourly, we'll look at the 12 hourly, we'll also go down into the 1 hourly view of the VET token. We'll have a look at the trend lines, see what's happening there, see what might be the upside in the very near future. There's also talk about potential head and shoulders. I don't necessarily think that's a clean-cut approach, but we'll have a look at that as well. So if you find this video useful, informative, and all that kind of good stuff, then do go ahead and smash that like button. My producer here really does appreciate it.
Yeah, and Nick says this because everyone asks what I do, and I'm the one that writes the blooming scripts.
I honestly do wish that Chris would write the scripts. Of course, we're unscripted here. We're completely off the fly, and yeah, really appreciate it. But nonetheless, if you find this video useful, informative, don't only smash the like button. Do remember to also subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. By subscribing, you will be kept up to date with all of the videos, the live streams, and the general banter that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, Chris, should we just jump over to the Vechain chart and really take a look at what's going on?
Yeah, I just put my script writing pen down, Nick. Let's get into it.
Right. So here we are. So we've got Vechain to the USD on the daily to start with. And basically, we're kind of going to go through what we can see and kind of give our thoughts about what might happen. And there's lots of talk about the VET price, and there's a slow climb towards 3.5. And I don't think necessarily it's going to be that slow. And I'm going to go through what I think might happen, and we kind of need a few things to happen first, but we'll go through all of that good stuff. So long term, I think there's been an upward trend recently. And I think that's pretty clear. And I kind of drew this trend line on our chart, which you can see here as well, just in this zone, right? So we can see this upward trend. Now, I've cut out a few of the wicks to hit as many of the wicks on the nail as possible. Some of them may have been anomalies. We've definitely seen things with Bitcoin corrections really forcing things to the downside. So ultimately, I tried to draw this trend line in to hit as many of the wicks as possible, and it really is forming a nice trend line. Even if I went to the end of the wicks, it's still an uptrend, but this one just seems to be the most solid. So this really is key to look at it on a 4 hourly chart, but we're going to really look at the daily, the 12 hour, the 4 hour, and the 1 hour in this video. So I think the upward trend is very clear to see, right? You can definitely see it here, but there's also lots of talk about a potential head and shoulders scenario, and you can see that within here, right? This is shoulder 1. We have the head come down and then potentially shoulder 2. But the shoulder 2 coming back down would basically invalidate our upward trend. So I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think we had the start of something, but I do not think it's actually going to complete. So we'll have a look and see it. I personally don't think that's a thing, but we'll have a look, right? So really that trend line is kind of the underpinning everything here that could potentially see some good growth for Vechain and the VET token. So let's go ahead and dive down a little bit deeper, right? So on here, what we're going to do is we're going to just highlight a few things. Let me just grab my pencil, my brush here. So obviously that's shoulder 1 that they're referring to. They're then saying that that is going to be the head, and then shoulder 2 would be basically this, but it would come and invalidate our trend line over here. So I don't think it's going to happen. If anything, we're going to get that, if I can draw a straight line, shoulder 1, the head, then come down on this, well, in fact, actually, that's not even quite right. It'll be the shoulder, the head. I just can't see it, to be honest with you. It's really not neat and tidy. So it just doesn't really work for me in that regard. But anyway, we can kind of assume that we're going to hit this top level here. This is the 3.1 cent, and we'll probably cool off from there. Okay, and there's lots of wicks that we've had up this top end, right? We can see lots of them, right? So we had that high level on our Fibonacci retracement, and then we've had 4 consecutive days of trying to pierce through, but unable to do so. We obviously had the Bitcoin corrections here and here, for example, really pulling things down. We have good, strong support in this zone here, and most recently we came down and touched on that 618 Fibonacci retracement zone and bounced right off of it, so that we know there's good support in this area. So let's take a look at the MACD. The MACD had a cross a few days ago and is still in a negative bearish position. But ultimately, the RSI is actually doing quite well. So obviously coming down in price, and this is correcting. It's still above 50. It's about 51 on this daily chart, but still gives us plenty of room to the upside. So let's go ahead and drill down to our first area. This is the 12-hourly view on this Vechain chart. So you can gain, this is where you can start to see how many touch points we've had on our trend line. So we've got good strong areas here. We obviously had this wick that went through it, and up here as well. So that's not too bad on this 12-hourly view, but it makes more sense on the 4-hourly when we have loads and loads of candles hitting it. So yeah, ultimately this is again that head and shoulders formation that people are referring to. And again, I don't think it's going to actually play out, because we can see several different things happening here. So obviously when we had this section, we obviously became overbought ever so slightly, in the same way that we were overbought over here when we had that section. So most recently we were actually down here, right? We came down to touch on the 40 zone. That happened here. That pushed us up a little bit, and we've cooled off down to 50. So this was 40, and where we are now is 50. Okay, so we could potentially go sideways in this zone here for a little while and still correct our RSI right down into this zone. Now, what I am seeing here is between our upward trend and our resistance line, we've seen a triangular wedge. Now, it's quite a weak wedge because we've been above this area quite a lot, but we could see a breakout happen here so that we can see an end to 2.8 cent. So basically, if I grab my my timeline here, we can see that actually this is going to be about 13 days until this wedge is completely out of the picture. So that's a good thing, because ultimately it means that we won't be dropping below 2.8 unless there's a big macro change such as Bitcoin correcting or whatever, right? So things are looking pretty good from that perspective. We're going to be slowly pushing our way up to that 3.1 and beyond. So the 4-hourly, this 12-hourly chart looks pretty good. Let's pull it down into our 4-hourly. Okay, and this shows us just the sheer number of candles that have been testing this trend. It's happened quite a bit here, and most recently here as well. So we've got quite a gap between our trend line most recently and our recent action as well. So what I'm going to do is just pull in a little bit closer. We can see we had a positive cross on our MACD, and we can see that's doing quite well currently. We can see the volumes were going up as we were increasing in value, and the volumes have been decreasing whilst decreasing in value. So that's actually a good sign, because decreasing volumes means it's going to run out of steam and potentially flip to the upside pretty quickly. So the more volume loss on the way down on these corrections, the better. So that's a really good sign. And obviously the RSI is correcting nicely as well, approaching the 50 zone on this 4-hourly chart. So that's going to give this a momentum as well. So it would be nice to just cool off, maybe test this area here for a little while, maybe a day or so in here, and then really get the momentum behind the RSI. And get some volume behind the VET as well. So let's pull this down one level lower at the hourly view. Here you can see lots and lots of really small candles, and that's really just a testament to the volume being very, very flat and coming down. So that's a good sign to get this green candle that you can see is forming most recently, and the RSI is now below 50 on this hourly at 44. Obviously, we would like it to be down here, right, way down at that lower level. That would be symbolizing a good motion to the upside. So we have some corrections still to do, and so it'd be nice to potentially continue to hover around here in this zone, and ultimately go sideways for a little bit longer, get this RSI into a better position, get the volumes cooling off before a good pump to the upside and potentially piercing 3.1 cent for good. So now I'm going to pull this back up, Chris, into our daily view. And here we can see, what's actually going on from a daily perspective. So we know that actually we're about 44 on this RSI in this zone, so a little bit lower than our current position. We know the MACD is in negative position as well. And we are in this triangular wedge that's about 13 days long. So a couple of days of cooling off in here, getting the RSI right down into this section could really help get us pushing up out and beyond our 3.1 cent. So what does that actually look like? So that looks like our first price target of 4.3 could just be around the corner. I know people are talking about a long stretch to maybe 3.5, but I think they're really referring to these particular candles here, right? That's the 3.5 cent, I believe, 3.48. And basically they're assuming that there's going to be a slow burn to get to that level. I think However, there is going to be resistance in this zone, but if we can get the RSI into a better position, we can get the MACD into a good position, and we get good volume, we can push past this 3.5 cent and go ahead and try to achieve that 4.3 much sooner. But time is really hard to predict. One thing for certain is that we are going to have this triangular wedge play out, and we should hopefully see the end of 2.8 cent in the within a couple of weeks or so, if not sooner. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out, Chris. I think it's going to be really interesting stuff for Vechain.
Yeah, definitely my biggest bag. Love this project. I think it's going to do really well, and yeah, going into the bull run, I'm excited, Nick. I really am.
There's such potential, and if we really have a look at what's been going on from all the way over here in March, and we were to think, okay, what would that look like? Let's get our price range, right? So if you're fortunate enough to get into the project around here in March, right, what kind of potential gains would you be talking about? So to get up to our first price target, which is the 4.3 cent, that represents 2,000% gains, right? 2,000% gains. If you're fortunate enough to potentially be buying when we had that crash in March. Now, for us personally, Chris, we didn't get in that early, but we did get in much earlier. It must have been around April time. So I'm going to go ahead and pop that there. So for us, getting to 4.3 cent does represent still 1,000% on when we first got in. So really depending on where you are or where you got into this project, or if you're thinking of getting into this project, there is still such huge potential because it is well undervalued. Don't take my word for it though, and I do recommend doing your own research. Do not just listen to any YouTuber who talks about this kind of thing, but really dig in deep and do some research into Vechain and what's going on there, because this project is absolutely fantastic. It's massive and has such huge potential long term. So I think 4.3 is really on the cards sooner rather than later. And as we enter this bull cycle, Chris, it's going to get really interesting. 2,000% gains since March is an incredible return on investment. So do watch that space, but by no stretch of the imagination is 4.3 cent the end of what we're thinking here for Vechain during 2021. Personally, I have a target here set for 50 cent. And I think there are people talking about potential $2 for Vechain during 2021 bull cycle. So lots of gain, lots of upside, but don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Do not pay attention to just anybody. You do have to make sure that you do your research into this thing and only invest what you can afford to lose. We cannot stress that enough, can we, Chris?
No, obviously none of what we say is financial advice. I think what's Nick's alluding to. But yeah, do your own research. We think you'll be pleasantly surprised with this particular project. And it is my biggest investment in this space. And I think that kind of says it all, really. We're in about 25 projects. So for this to be my biggest investment, I think that's a bold statement.
Absolutely. So guys, if you have found this video useful and informative, do go ahead and smash that like button. Chris really appreciates it, and as do I. And if by chance you're not yet subscribed to the channel, then do go ahead and subscribe. By subscribing, you will be kept up to date with all the videos and live streams that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. And with all this said and done, we hope you have a fantastic day, guys, and we'll catch you all in the next one.
Yeah, take care.